We are recording the interview of John Pollard. This interview is being conducted by David Berry from the Wright State University's Veteran Voices Project. This interview is being recorded at the Holiday Inn Hotel in Fairborn, Ohio. It is 4 p.m. on June 7th, 2019. Why don't we start with where and when were you born?
I was born May the 19th, 1951 in Allentown, Pennsylvania.
And who are your parents and what do they do?
My father was Clayton Lamar Pollard. He was deceased at the age of 66 after working for Pennsylvania Power and Light for about 40 years and died very suddenly. He had retired in June, was dead in October. My mother lived on till she was in her early 80s, 81 or 82. Not really sure on that, but she died of a heart condition.
Did you have any brothers or sisters?
I had stepsister and stepbrother from my father's previous marriage. His first wife died of cancer. I had a younger brother, 5 years younger than I am, but he's also deceased. More or less, he drank himself and smoked himself to death, so he self-inflicted mostly.
Sorry to hear that. Did any members of your family serve in the military?
My older brother was a draftee, served from 53 to 55 in Germany, in the Army.
Yeah, that's where I was stationed as well, as Germany, and I had a pretty good time there.
Good duty.
Oh, yeah. So, what were you doing before you joined the military?
I joined the military while I was still in high school on what they referred to as the Deferred Enlistment Program. And they said, as soon as you graduate, we'll let you know when to report. Graduated in June, was in the Air Force in August. And I actually worked at a Boy Scout camp summers prior to that, and that's where I was working when they called and said, come to Philadelphia, it's time for you to leave.
And what year was this?
That would have been 1969.
So you said the Air Force was what you decided to go into?
Well, I started out talking to an Army recruiter, and the guy said, 26 weeks, we'll make you a warrant officer and you get to fly your own helicopter. I thought, that sounds pretty good. But in 1969, life expectancy of helicopter pilots wasn't really a long time, so to speak. And I think sometimes my mother paid my buddies to kind of cajole me into joining the Air Force. And 5 of us went in on the buddy plan. We all reported the same day. We went to basic training. And from there, we were separated to different tech schools.
I was just getting a mental image of your mother talking to your friends like, no, get him in the Air Force recruiter office.
Yep. Well, she did. She said, I don't know why you want to be why would you go in the Army? Why walk when you can fly or sail on a ship? It's like, okay, well, yeah, that makes some sense, but I still like the idea of flying my own helicopter. But the Air Force won out.
So 1969, the draft was going on at this time, correct? Did that have any sway in why you
None.
Okay.
None. I had pretty much made up my mind that I wanted to get into the military. In fact, I wanted to make it a career. But in 72, well, latter part of 71, I got married. And when 73 came and it was time to get out, she didn't like the idea that I was never home, because I was with a squadron of aircraft that moved constantly, and when the aircraft moved, so did we. Maintenance guys had to go with it. So we decided that I should get out of the Air Force after 4 years.
All right, so your mom talks your buddies into getting you into the Air Force recruiting office.
I think that's what happened, yes.
So you sign up, and then you go to basic training. Where was your basic training at?
Lackland Air Force Base down in San Antonio, Texas.
And how was that for you?
It was extremely warm. It was, we got there at about 3 o'clock in the morning, and it was like 87 degrees and 90% humidity. It was like trying to breathe in a blanket. It was horrible. And I thought, boy, I don't know why we had to come here now. Why didn't we wait till like, September or October? It would have been a lot better. But yeah, it was very humid, very muggy. Didn't like it at all.
Did you have any drill instructors or any instructors come to mind?
Yeah. We had two for our flight. One of them's name was Xavier Barnett. He's an African American staff sergeant. Wore mirrored sunglasses and always seemed to know that somebody was watching him. And he would immediately snap in front of that guy, and he'd be saying things like, "Don't be eyeballing me, boy." And the other guy's name, I don't remember the first name. He was a staff sergeant as well. Last name was Breckenridge. Both nice guys in the fact that they wanted our flight to be the best. And that was something that was pretty much instilled in all the members of our flight. That you're going to be the best, and you're going to work your tail off to be the best.
So, after tech school, there's normally some type of training afterwards. Did you get to choose your job before going to basic, or did you get your job selected for you while you're at basic?
When we were at basic training, we had like 3 or 4 days left before graduation, and they brought orders out. Myself, I went to Chanute Air Force Base in Rantoul, Illinois for a jet engine mechanics school. One of my friends went also to Chanute, but he was for the sheet metal airframe repair. One of my friends went somewhere for air traffic control school, and the other guy went to anyway, down in Texas, another base in Texas for crew chief training, for an aircraft crew chief. So we were all separated then.
So was a jet engine mechanic what you wanted to be? Or were you happy with that job assignment?
I was okay with it. I figured anything but a cook. I didn't want to be a cook because I had worked in food service all through high school. Mm-hmm. And I said, it's like, nah, I don't want to do that for the rest of my life.
So how long was your training then?
We trained from October until January.
And then after training, where did you go?
I received orders to go to Nakhon Phanom, Royal Thai Air Force Base.
Oh.
That was my first base right out of tech school.
And that was located in Thailand, correct?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So just straight out of tech school, right into
into Thailand. Yep. And
how did you feel during that time?
Well, I kind of looked forward to it because I had never been able to travel, or as a kid we never went anywhere real special. A beach maybe, but that was about it. And I had never been anywhere, really out of the country at that point.
Was there a culture shock or anything?
Well, we flew out of Travis Air Force Base in California, and we kind of island hopped going into Tan Son Nhut Air Force Base in Vietnam, and then from there we flew into Bangkok. I got off the plane, and we flew with Braniff International. It was an airline, but they were contracted by the federal government to move troops. Some guys went by ship. I was fortunate we went by aircraft. But when we got to Bangkok, they put me on a military aircraft, C-7 Caribou. And the loadmaster kind of welcomed everybody. There was like 10 of us. And we were going to different bases. And he said, he just kind of welcomed us to Thailand and said, basically enjoy your flight on old Shaky. And he wasn't kidding. That plane vibrated terrible all the way up to Nakhon Phanom. We were the last stop, by the way. We went to Nakhon Phanom, and that's where I was the last guy on the plane to get off. So, other than the crew, I was last guy on the plane.
So when you got to Thailand and do your base, what were some of the duties that you had to do throughout your time there?
Well, I was what they call a 43230, and you had like on-the-job training. You build up, work on the aircraft engines before they're put on the aircraft, and get them ready to be mounted on the aircraft. And then you learn as you're doing it, and at the end they kind of give you a verbal question and answer thing about the aircraft engine. Do you know how many horsepower it has? That kind of thing. And then they make you a 43250, which allows you to work on the aircraft engine. So instead of just putting parts on, you're now able to troubleshoot and figure out what's wrong with it, if there's a problem, and how to fix that. So.
Were you able to pick up that pretty quickly, or?
I did. I was very fortunate because I went from the build-up section after I got my 5 level. I went to the build-up, or from the build-up section out to the flight line, where I actually worked on mission-ready aircraft. And I had some good helpers, a couple of staff sergeants that showed me little tricks on how to do things that save time. And like, instead of looking for your feeler gauge, take yourself a dollar bill, fold it in half, and if it slides back and forth in the throttle linkage, you're good. That kind of thing. And I got real good with that. And the 21st Special Operations Squadron, which had CH-3s and HH-53s, helicopters, big helicopters, and they were looking for guys to go on what we called a RAM team, rural area maintenance, where they'd send us out for a battle-damaged helicopter, fix it up as best we could, and they'd fly it back to the base and do the major repairs there. So I got good enough to be selected for that. So I got to travel all over Southeast Asia to Army bases, other Air Force bases, and we were into Laos several times picking up helicopters. They just sit down there and in the jungle, and we'd go fix them up, and they'd fly them out.
That's got to be pretty dangerous. I mean, being out in the open and fixing stuff.
For an 18-year-old kid, it was a pretty exciting job. I thought, this is great. I liked it. But we had some excitement on some of those flights, but we always, everybody came out safe, and we got back to base. We were happy.
Were you able to do anything for recreation or relaxation while you were there?
Spent a lot of time at the swimming pool. Yeah, I enjoyed that. And, naturally, we had some, adult beverages, even though 18, you're not considered an adult yet, but that was back in the day. Now, 18, you can vote and do other things. So we enjoyed that.
Were there any memories or any specific events that happened that stick out in your mind while you were over there?
Yeah. I always remember one of the guys that was on one of the crews, a guy by the name of Ripley, and Bill and I became pretty good friends, even though he was several years older than I was. We spent a lot of time together. We'd go downtown and eat Thai food, go to the NCO club, and have some beers and listen to the Filipino bands trying to sing American songs and things like that. And Bill was lost in the country of Thailand. Their aircraft, helicopter, was shot down. And when it first happened, there was all kinds of speculation. They ran out of gas, those kind of things. And I was like, nah, that didn't sit well with me, that nobody runs out of gas like that. So, and when they visited the crash site, then they did find evidence that they were shot out of the sky. There was one lone survivor. He was burned really bad, and I didn't recall his name, but I know he was sent back to the States for medical treatment. He probably spent months in a hospital. If he survived at all, I don't know. I know Rip did not make it. And that's it's, you think about that, he's only, 3 years older than you are, and he lost. His name's on the wall, and I've been there several times, checked it out.
Was there anything that you were able to do while you were there that kind of helped push you through or move past that?
Well, you stay busy all the time. Mission-ready aircraft, there's always something to do that needs to be done immediately. The mission-ready aircraft, you don't want to have anything abort because of maintenance problems. Now, there's other things that have effect on that, weather and things like that, but if it's your engine that's giving them trouble, you want to be the guy that can say, I fixed it and I'll fly on this plane if you want me to, You got a confidence builder, but there's always a lot of stuff to do.
So while you were there, were you on the day shift, the night shift?
I work mostly night shift, 6 at night till 6 in the morning.
Did you want to be on that shift, or is that just where you got put?
That's where they put me, and I was really happy to be there. I enjoyed that. It's cooler at night.
Was there anything else that made it more enjoyable over day shift?
I would say that there's not that many people, officer types that are around, and it's more relaxed.
Sounds good. Did you work on just one specific aircraft, or were there multiple?
There was several. I worked on the CH-3s and HH-53s, which are big helicopters, OV-10 Broncos, C-123K models, which are 123s with ramjets on the wings, and the C-119 gunships, Stinger gunships that had the illuminator that they had a gas turbine unit that powered that. So we could get called on any of those.
Was there any aircraft that you enjoyed working on more than another, or?
I enjoyed the helicopters most.
Why was that?
I had more of a knack for them than I did for the other aircraft. The other aircraft I had to go to a tech order a lot. The helicopter, I could pretty much, if they told me what the symptoms were, I could pretty much tell them what needed to be fixed and fix it.
Oh, huh. So how long were you in Thailand then? Because you traveled quite a bit. Was it only in Thailand, or did you get to go?
I traveled all over Southeast Asia. We were into Laos. We went to Quang Tri province up in northern Vietnam, right along the DMZ. Da Nang Air Base. A lot of times we'd go there for parts, for stuff to take into the field. So we traveled around a lot to do the job we did.
How long were you there?
I was in Thailand for a year.
During that, was there, when you were fixing the aircraft, was it mainly just routine maintenance, or would you have to repair battle damage? Or?
If we had battle damage, it was usually requiring a change of engine. We'd have drag along a spare engine, and if we needed to change it, we just change it.
Yeah.
It wasn't really that difficult to change. It was take bolts out, mount bolts out, lift it off, lift a new one up, put the bolts back in, and bolt everything down, safety wire it, and we're good to go.
So then at the end of your deployment, when you're coming back home, how was that?
I never experienced any of the things that some of the other veterans coming back did. People shouted at us maybe when we were going through the airport, but I wasn't spit at or had stuff thrown at me like some of the vets talk about. And when we talk to the kids in school, I tell them my war was a lot different than the Marines or the Army. I never went without having a roof over my head, a hot shower, food to eat, things like that. Now, there was times we sat around at the helicopter overnight waiting to fly out in the morning, or we had sea rations to eat or something like that. But it wasn't like a constant diet of that stuff. Never had to sleep on cardboard, in a fighting hole or anything like that. So, it was totally different experience than what, say, a Marine or an Army person might, especially an Army guy that's what they call it, 11 Bravo, something like that.
How was your family when you came back? Were they excited that you're back? Did they do anything for you?
Well, my mom moved while I was, right after I left for the Air Force, my mother moved. And she moved from Allentown, Pennsylvania to Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. I have no idea to this day what drew her back to Bloomsburg, but that was her choice. And when I came home, there was nobody at the airport to meet me, so I got a cab and went to the bus station, and I took a bus from Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania down to Bloomsburg. And I got off the bus, and there was still nobody there to meet me, so I picked up my duffel bag and I asked the guy where was East Street, and he said, go out the door to your right, go to the big intersection. When you see the police station, make a right. That's East Street. Walked all the way home, which like 5 blocks. Door's locked. Knocked on the door. My mom opened the door and she said, "Oh, it's you." So that was basically my welcome home from overseas.
So after you got back from your deployment, how much longer were you in the military?
Let's see, a year, probably a year and a half, 2 years. Got out in 73, August of 73.
And what were you doing for those 2 years?
I came back to Langley Field in Virginia with a squadron, 3 squadrons of C-130s, and they rotated between Langley Field and RAF Mildenhall in England, Rhine-Main, Germany, or Incirlik Air Base in Turkey. And anytime a squadron left, engine guys had to go with them. So I spent a lot of time what they call TDY, temporary duty assignments. And from all of those places, I went to the Panama Canal Zone, the Azores, back through the islands, bringing stuff back from Vietnam, the war, worn out stuff from the war we'd haul back. It was Alaska, Spain, Rome. Got to travel a lot in a year and a half, 2 years.
Did any one country stick out as being more favorable than the others?
I loved Alaska.
Oh.
That was great. Well, it was just different. It was we were there in the early winter, January, and when we landed, brought had your toolbox and stuff, and the guy came on, "Yeah, welcome to Elmendorf, Alaska, the pride of North America," kind of thing. Gave you that pep talk, and then he said, "Okay, gentlemen, it's 52 below zero outside. I recommend that you step lively when you head for the briefing building." Okay. So we hot-footed it into the briefing building, and he said, "Your toolboxes will get stored over there. Make sure you put both locks on them, and we'll see you in the morning." Barracks is waiting. Bus is out front. Took a soy bus over to the barracks, and we unloaded our gear and went on to bed.
So what made you want to get out after your first kind of initial contract instead of staying in?
I didn't want to get out. I had gotten married, and my wife said, "Well, you're never home, and you have a child now." I said, "Really, though, but a re-enlistment bonus is pretty good." And I said, "You get a base of choice. I could go to Hawaii. You want to go to Hawaii?" "I want to visit Hawaii. I don't want to live there," she said. Okay. So I took up a career in law enforcement and spent 35 years in police work, and still missed birthdays, holidays. those kind of things.
So, when did you meet your wife? Did you meet her before you went?
I knew her briefly before I left for the Air Force. When I came back, my mother had actually rented property off of her mom and dad, and through that relationship with her mom and dad, I, met her and we became a couple.
Great. So, was your deployment, your military experience, did that help you in your law enforcement, or were they kind of two separate animals?
No. It's police departments are a paramilitary organization, and taking orders becomes pretty much second nature. You're told what you're going to do, and you go do it. And I enjoyed the camaraderie of police work as much as I did the camaraderie of the military, and met a lot of good people, and had some really great experiences.
So was it a pretty easy adjustment?
For me, it was, yeah. My family struggled with it a little bit, but for me, it wasn't that big of a deal.
So where were you at when the Vietnam War ended and all that
I had been out just about 2 years, and I remember seeing it on the news, and it was disheartening because we sacrificed a lot of young, vibrant people, both men and women, and you wonder to yourself, 58,100 and some people on the wall, and in my opinion, we didn't fight to win. We played politically motivated football with stuff and rules of engagement and things like that. Very similar to I hear young vets talk about today about Afghanistan and Iraq, where you take property and then you leave and they take it back, and then you send a bigger bunch of guys to go get it back again, and yeah, it's disheartening. We had the air superiority, the naval superiority, and I think we could have really, if we'd have been allowed to, really have carried the day.
And how long were you working in law enforcement?
I worked in police department for 31 years. In fact, I'm still a part-time officer in a small, very rural township right across the river from Bloomsburg.
Yeah, we've moved quite through the list of questions pretty quickly. Are you a member of any veteran organizations?
I'm the adjutant for my VFW post, Fort McClure Post 804, Bloomsburg, and a member of the Valley of Bloomsburg American Legion Post 273.
What made you want to get involved with the VFW and the American Legion?
Again, looking for the camaraderie and the friendship of other veterans. Some of the guys in the police department were veterans, so we all belonged to the same organizations. That and the Fraternal Order of Police. So, it's like, okay, I've got a meeting tonight, it's the Legion, tomorrow night it's the VFW, the FOP is conventions this weekend, that kind of thing. And we're always on the uptake for a meeting and camaraderie with the veterans or the police officers.
Yeah, that's awesome. What are some life lessons you feel you've learned from your military service?
I'm sorry?
What are some life lessons that you have learned from your military service?
contrary to popular belief, hard work will not kill you, and hard work usually ends up with recognition of a job well done.
Well, I only have a couple questions left. Is there anything you feel like we haven't discussed or should be added to this interview?
I think you've covered it very well.
Oh, cool. Well, then this leads me to my last question, and that is, what message would you like to leave for future generations who will view this interview?
Keep patriotism alive. Keep patriotism alive. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Well, this concludes our interview. I just want to say thank you for taking the time to do this interview, and thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.